For the past few days, and for what I imagine will be the next few weeks, there are a lot of people in the gaming world asking the same question. Surely Expedition 33 isn't that good. At the Game Awards 2025, it sets a new record for the most amount of awards won for a single game on any night at the Game Awards, bagging a total of 9 awards, including Game of the Year, Best RPG, Best Narrative, Best Performance for Jennifer English, Best Soundtrack, literally winning every single award it was nominated for other than Player's Voice, which, to be fair, I figured Genshin Impact would win again.
The Game Award goes to Genshin Impact.
But it's been really interesting just seeing a lot of people discussing the game, whether it deserved as many awards as it got, whether the game's overhyped, whether people should be trying it. I really regret not playing this game the second it came out, because I was really excited for it for months in the lead up to it coming out, but I was really busy with my work schedule when it came out and decided I would wait until I had some proper time to dedicate to it, which wasn't until about August. And by that point, obviously the initial buzz had passed away, and that's why I didn't end up doing a video on it at the time. But this feels like a great excuse for me to jump in and do that Expedition 33 video that I always wanted to do. So in this video, I just want to talk a little bit about the game and why I love it, just riff a bit. But I am going to say there's going to be absolutely no spoilers in this. I could do spoilers, I absolutely could, but as a general recommendation, if you're watching this video right now and you're considering picking up the game, you haven't played it yet, and you're pretty much sure you're going to, I realize as a YouTuber it's my job to keep you watching, but genuinely, stop watching, go and play the game. This is one of those cases where the less you know about the game, the more you'll probably enjoy it, honestly. I knew a little bit more about the story than I wanted to going into it, or at least that I wish I'd known, I should say. I kind of understood what was happening even in the prologue, and a lot of people didn't, and I would have loved to have been one of those people who had absolutely no idea what was going on. I just kind of like that idea. But if you do want to stick around, hear me wax lyrical about it, or you've played the game already and just want to know my thoughts, then let's get into it and discuss everything about Clair Obscur Expedition 33 and why the game fully deserves to win Game of the Year, and I think pretty much every single award that it got on the night of the Game Awards. Because it is genuinely just a fantastic game and a success story that I think people will be talking about for a very long time to come. And of course, as always, if you enjoy the video and you want to see more random content like this, then please click the like button and comment down below. What do you want me to talk about? Do you want to see me talk about other things from the Game Awards? Let me know. So let's start at the very base with the game's premise and core narrative. Again, without spoilers, this is the kind of thing they lead you with. You're part of a group of people on an expedition that is setting out into a wide space known as the continent to defeat someone called the Paintress, who is this powerful entity who every year erases a bunch of people from the town that this expedition lives in called Lumiere. Every year, a new number gets painted on the monolith, and all the people of that age on the monolith all die. There is quite literally a doomsday clock ticking in Lumiere, and the longer they leave it, the less people that are going to be left alive. And it goes on that journey, what Expedition 33 sets off on, and how they reach the Paintress and hopefully stop her from painting death. That's the whole idea. The whole thing has a very cool subtext of artistry and painting. It's set in old-time France, Epoch France, I believe is the name for it. Kind of like an alternate world version of it. You got an Eiffel Tower that's bent over, and Art Deco, not quite realistic, but semi-realistic. Architecture design, things like that, so it feels rooted in reality, but a little bit twisted on that. It's why art direction was one of the most deserving awards for this. If you've seen any gameplay of some of the locations in this game, all of them are so uniquely visually presented in such a gorgeous way. You've got black and white spaces, really deep, colourful spaces, underwater areas. You've got a lot of different locations that are all presented incredibly uniquely. You'll be controlling a set of key characters. There are 6 characters in the game overall that you will encounter and or play as that are the main ones, without spoiling too much story-wise. Again, being very careful there. But you have Gustave, Maël, Lune, CL, Monoko, and Verso. They're the 6 main characters. There are other supporting ones like Noko, Esquier, and other people like that, but you have those core 6 on the expedition or joining you on the expedition to take down the Paintress. But over the course of the game, you get to build relationships with all of these characters, get to know them better, see them all interact with each other. There's a really good effort in this game, especially in its like nighttime camp scenes, which feel a bit Baldur's Gate 3-esque in their nature. I know Baldur's Gate 3 probably didn't even invent that, but it's a good comparison to make as a recent game. But you have those kind of nighttime spaces where you can interact with every single person, chat to them, get to know them better, build relationships friendship levels, and just get to know how each different person knows each other. It doesn't feel like a case of these people that are banded together, you just have to get to know them. You kind of already know the different people on different levels contextually anyway, and you'll sometimes get cutscenes with just two different characters together, just bonding together, like Lune and Ciel, you get to see some stuff with them together, or Gustave and Maël, or Verso and Esquier. There's all sorts of different mixes of people having different conversations that are all building each other's characters up. It doesn't always feel focused on one person. There are a couple of key characters that pop out as the most prevalent, Gustave and Maël being the two that come to mind the most, but even beyond that, every other character does feel like they get some unique attention, which is really nice. I don't feel like any character's left wanting. There could be some more for certain characters, sure, but I don't think anyone's left without development, which is a real testament to the balancing of the characters and the narrative. There are absolutely incredible performances. You've got Charlie Cox, who I believe has never done a voice acting role in gaming before, obviously most known for playing Daredevil, and quite funnily has been on a circuit of conventions constantly saying, don't be giving me all the credit for this, I only did a few hours voice work, you know, credit everybody else for their work.
I was asked to do the voice for a computer game.
Gustav.
Yeah, for this game, Expedition 33. I'm not a gamer, so I haven't played it. I knew nothing about it other than I went into a studio and I did 4 hours probably of voiceover for this character. They've come a long way since, you know, Mario 64.
But then you've got other juggernauts like Ben Starr, obviously famous for Final Fantasy 16, I believe it is. Also, you know, just being Jimbo in Balatro, obviously his most iconic role, come on. And my personal favourite, and genuinely probably my favourite actor in the gaming industry right now, Jennifer English, who I absolutely adore. Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, she was in Elden Ring as well. Seemingly is a good luck charm for games winning game of the year, because that's Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, and Expedition 33 now. Tides of Annihilation, you got some work to do, for real. But all of them deliver absolutely standout performances, every single person. There is not a phoned-in performance at all in this game. Charlie Cox was really, really good. I was really impressed with him. I mean, I know he's a good actor anyway. I really love him as Daredevil, but it's also just nice to hear him with his more natural accent, because obviously he is a British guy and he's not playing a British person in Daredevil. He definitely delivers that. Jennifer English, I mean, she won Best Performance. Literally almost made me cry at the Game Awards. It basically did make me cry. I have got a clip of that from the Game Awards. I streamed the whole event, watching it all live, and she was the one I most wanted to win an award. And I might well start posting shorts full of stuff from the Game Awards, so let me know if you want me to do that, because I'm considering it. Short form content is kind of a young man's game, and I know I'm not old, but it still feels a bit young for me, so maybe I'll do it. Let me know. But despite the small controversy that it got, I think there is a reason that this game was half of the nominations for Best Performance at the Game Awards. Charlie Cox, Ben Starr, and Jennifer English all got nominations, and while I agree it probably would have been better to spread it a bit more and give other people in other games nominations, part of me wonders if they should have just given more nominations rather than swapping people out, because I don't even think Charlie Cox was a missed nomination. I mean, only in the sense that he didn't really want the credit and was like, please don't vote for me, please don't let me win, I don't want it, which was lovely of him. I still think his work deserved that, but there are other people that people have been talking about, from say Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, etc., who probably also deserve nominations. So I wonder if it should have just been a wider net, maybe, or do what the Golden Joysticks did. Best lead performer, best support performer. That would have been a good way too to get more people nominated, because for one thing, Andy Serkis is one of the supporting cast in this game, playing the character of Renoir, someone completely steeped in mystery story-wise, so again, I'm not going to go into that. If you want me to do a spoiler video on Expedition 33, let me know. Maybe I'll do that, but his performance is incredible, and his should be nominated for something. I'm pretty sure he's got a BAFTA nomination for Best Supporting Actor in a Game. Thoroughly deserved. I don't know beyond that, though. I don't know if he's had any of the nominations, but he should get some too. But going back to the narrative, there's one more thing I do want to touch on, which is that it is not a predictable story in any way, shape, or form. I don't believe that at all, but I really like that it doesn't hold your hand. A lot of stories, they really explain things very specifically down to the detail for you, and that's nothing wrong with that. I do like sometimes when a game just tells you up front what its story is as it's going. It works for some games, but this one, I was looking up explanations on some things that I wasn't quite following as I was going. I was trying to absorb myself more into the story, because there were some reveals that I got but didn't fully get every single detail of, and you kind of need to piece things together from conversations and other things to get the full picture. You'll get enough from playing the game, don't get me wrong, you won't feel like loads of pieces are missing, but it really feels like it hooks you in more, because it does leave you with some questions like, how does this work? Okay, that connects to that, and all these different threads come together, and especially on replay, you can see quite how well the twists and turns of the story were seeded throughout. It's a really incredible thing. It's hard doing this without spoiling it, man. It's really hard, but especially in the wake of the Game Awards and with loads of people trying the game, I just don't want to get into that because I want to keep it spoiler-free for people. But you got a good narrative, you got some fantastic cast members, but there's one other very, very big thing about this game that is standout. And it's funny, because with a lot of games or media or people generally, I get attached to things very easily. You know, it only takes something that really speaks to me for me to go, oh, I really like this is really cool. And sometimes with the games that happens after a little bit, sometimes happens very quickly. I don't think it's ever happened as quickly as it did with Expedition 33, because within 30 seconds of opening the game, this is all I could hear. And I genuinely tweeted at the time when I started Expedition 33, this was the menu music, and I knew I was going to be hooked just from the way that that soundtrack was presenting itself. A lot of you know I'm a big soundtrack nerd. I mean, one of the reasons I love Sonic the Hedgehog so much is because the soundtracks in those games never miss, but I talked about Baldur's Gate 3 and how that is genuinely a genre-defining soundtrack. Expedition 33, I would argue, is possibly even better. Like, oh, Lorien Testard is an absolutely phenomenal composer, and the best thing about it is, if you've not watched some of the documentaries on behind the scenes of this game's development, I highly recommend Skill Ups. It's a 2-hour exploration into how this game basically should never have been made the way it was, and it's a miracle that it was in the best way possible. Lorien had never done a game soundtrack before. He posted on a forum that got closed a couple of days later just looking for something random and got picked up by the game's director. They came together and he wrote this incredible soundtrack that now has topped Billboard charts, is going on a tour across Europe at the very least, and I think possibly worldwide later in 2026. And it just feels like it belongs everywhere it's played. It's such a gorgeous soundtrack that feels very classical and operatic in its nature, but is appealing to everybody. I would go as far as to say I don't think there could be a single person out there who plays and likes Expedition 33 without talking about the soundtrack at some point, because man, it's just incredible. If you want a game that's really going to back you up with some gorgeous music in its key moments, look no further. There's just some genuinely incredible stuff cover to cover. Honestly, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous soundtrack, and Lorien deserves all the flowers in the world, as do the singers on a lot of the songs. Alice Duport-Pessier, I think is how you say her name, and Victor Borba, both of them gorgeous voices in every song they appear on, particularly Alice. She shows up on a lot of the tracks, and her vocal performance is astounding. Some really fantastic stuff there. I also want to spend a bit of time talking about the combat, because this is a turn-based combat game. It's a bit like those kind of classic older JRPGs, like some of the original Final Fantasy games. I only know this from people talking about it. I don't really play Final Fantasy. It's an interesting one for me because turn-based combat is never something I've been fully invested in. You know, the best example I could give was as a kid, I played a lot of Worms. That was like the best turn-based experience I was having as a kid. And so when Baldur's Gate 3 came out, one of the big things that turned me off playing that was the turn-based combat. That was one thing I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. Then I played it and really, really enjoyed it. I would say I prefer Expedition 33's combat even more. It's not to put down Baldur's Gate 3. I'm a firm believer that you don't need to put something down to praise something else. But I genuinely saw something else come along here with this and went, oh wow, this is even better because of the parry system. I'm such a very basic combat person in games. If the option is to attack or defend, I will just keep attacking. I don't tend to defend, parry, block, anything like that. But Expedition 33 makes you want to try. It makes you want to get good at defending yourself and blocking against attacks and parrying back so you can counter. And it's such an interesting system that's set up in that game to the point where there is a boss very, very early in the game. If you've played the game, you're going to know where I'm going with this, in a location called Abyss Cave. It recommends you don't go back until later in the game, but I walked in at a very low level and ended up fighting the boss, and I beat it the second time because I spent 40 minutes parrying its attacks because I was that determined to get the hang of the system. And from there, I just was really good at parrying with a lot of the attacks right through the game with a bit of practice. It was lovely. It's just a really interesting and engaging system where you can do a lot of build crafting. That's one thing that's really interesting. You have these bonuses you can pick called Pictos and Lumina, which allow you to give unique characteristics to your characters, let them attack more than once, get energy back for attacks, or always play first, play twice. If their health drops down, you go back to play as them again. You get buffs if they're playing on their own. There's so much, genuinely, that's just a handful. There are hundreds of these things, and it's really interesting to build specific characters, just create these synergies. That's just a really interesting thing. For one of the characters, Luna, she's kind of presented as a bit more of a healer, I think, in some ways, but there are builds you can create with her where you can do certain attacks and then do this particular skill that just demolishes every enemy on the field. Or you can pick Mael, who has one of the most broken skills in the entire game called Stendhal, and just go full damage on her, so when she unleashes that attack, she just shreds everything. There's some really interesting mixes here, and every character in combat has some unique trait to them that you have to get used to. Gustav has an overcharge ability that builds up over the course of a fight, and then you can blast at enemies. Verso has a perfection score. The higher his perfection score, the more damage he deals. Mael has different stances. She's kind of a fencing character. She can be more damaging, more defensive. It's really interesting seeing how every single character has a unique edge to them. For some of them, it won't appeal to you at all, but that's okay because in combat, you're only allowed to take 3 people. So you can kind of pick which 3 blend together or you like the most, or whose playstyles you think would synergize well. There's a really interesting setup there where you can just kind of pick what you want and build it how you want. And if there are characters that you don't feel are as interesting to you combat-wise, or you can't quite get the hang of, CL for me, I will go back and understand her at some point, then you don't have to play as that character. They'll still be involved in the story, they'll still be in the cutscenes, but when you're in a fight, they just won't be there. So genuinely, it was a really big leap for me to have another game with turn-based combat that I didn't just like, I loved. I really like the layout of it. It's such a fun experience. There are a few other bits I could talk about with this game. Like, for example, I'm a big fan of romance in video games, and I do think Expedition 33 is not fantastic for that. You can have a couple of little romance options, which I won't get into, but they're very kind of surface level. You don't get much out of them. But in games like this, I normally feel like romance is a big part of it and really helps me absorb the world more. I just don't think it's needed in here. You could have not had it at all, and I would have been like, yeah, that's fair. It just doesn't need to be here. So I would have liked to have seen them maybe explore it a bit more because they sowed the seeds of it. But honestly, I'm too hooked on everything else to care. care. I'm sorry, I'm just loving everything else. So that was really nice. And I also want to praise the exploration nature of it, the pacing of the game, because you'll spend more time exploring the world and looking for secret things and looking for little extra pictos and luminous to add to your build, extra weapons, and encountering optional bosses. There's all sorts of stuff like that, loads of those. But there's also loads of locations that aren't part of the main story. And as you're going along, you can choose to explore them if you want, or come back to them later. When you get to the final act, if you want, you can get through the main story of that very, very quickly and do everything later. Or you could save it as this big grand finale and artificially pace it out yourself by going, actually, I want to explore everything there is first and then have the big final battle. There is a still very well-paced story in the game, but you can control that pacing yourself artificially a little bit, and it doesn't feel like you lose any of that momentum. It just feels like every bit you're doing is progressing you towards the finale, whether it was meant to be done in that order or not, which is a huge praise to the game. So as you can see, without spoilers, I've still managed to waffle for about 20 minutes about this game. So as you can see, I had a lot of things I wanted to praise when it comes to Expedition 33. It's an interesting one because, especially in the context of the Game Awards, I talked about this a bit on my live streams, but it feels like we got Baldur's Gate 3 all over again, in the sense of this year there have been so many interesting games and so many games that deserve to win awards, but then you have something that comes out that is just a step above. Whether you enjoy it or not, a lot of people objectively can agree that it is just something a bit above based on the way it's presented, how it was made, the budget behind it, the team behind it, the success story of it. Something that just comes along and goes, no, actually, modern gaming can do this different than everyone else is telling you and still be absolutely fantastic. And because it just stands that little bit above, it just stands slightly on the shoulders of the other amazing games, it ends up sweeping a lot of the attention, a lot of the awards. The same thing happened in 2023. You know, I haven't played Alan Wake 2, but I know a lot of people who've enjoyed it and wants it to win a lot more awards and recognition, and it didn't get a lot of them because Baldur's Gate 3 existed, and that game was phenomenal, and no one could debate that. It's incredibly interesting that 2 years later we have the same situation again, and it's lovely that we got so many different games nominated for awards. I think it's a shame that more of them don't win them, but I'm not in a camp where I'm thinking Expedition 33 shouldn't have won the awards so that others could win them. I'm just like, other games should have won some awards, but I can get why they didn't because Expedition 33 just exists. It's a catch-22 situation. I genuinely think it deserves all the flowers it's getting. It is an utterly phenomenal game, but it's just nice to look and be like, there are so many games people want to win awards that are losing because there's something else even more well-received by most people. That's a good situation to be in. Better to have too many games that are fighting for awards than not enough and just kind of go, everything sucks, so I guess this one should win. You know, it's nice to look at it positively, at least it's what I try to do. But ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts on Clair Obscur Expedition 33, only about 7 months late, but I had to get something out because I really wanted to talk about this and just wax lyrical about why I love this game and how enjoyable it is. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do want to hear me talk about spoilers, please do let me know. I could do a spoiler discussion video on the game. I'd still be up for that. Thank you all very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to see more content from me, let me know in the comment section what you'd like to see me talk about. If you want to see more stuff on the Game Awards, like I said, I might cook up some short form content on some of my reactions to the big awards or big trailers, things like that. Let me know and I may well put some stuff together. But either way, thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all soon with another video. Look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next one, for those who come after.